Rabbi Yisrael Pinson.
Thank you, Satori. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Or as we say, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. You got it. The first letter came in 1952. It was mailed from Brooklyn, New York, from Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson, also known as the Rabbi, to my grandfather, my paternal grandfather, who at the time lived in Paris, France. He was a refugee from Eastern Europe, from Soviet Union, who after the war settled in Paris. The Rabbi wrote him a letter, and he said to him, I would like you to move to Morocco, Casablanca, Morocco, North Africa, to open a Jewish school. You see, the Rebbe has a philosophy. His philosophy is that every single person deserves to be loved. And when they are lacking that love, we need to go there to those places and show them the love they deserve. His philosophy also came with a practical aspect to it, where he would send letters to people and ask them to move. He would say to them, when one person meets another person, a third person has to benefit from that encounter. So my grandfather packed his bags, took his wife, my grandmother, my father was a little 2-year-old boy, and they traveled to Casablanca. They opened a few schools there. At the time, North Africa was a French colony, and the French, part of their mission was to assimilate the local population into the French culture. So there was very little of Jewish education available. And together with some of his colleagues, they built schools until in 1960, another letter came. The letter was again from the Rebbe, and the Rebbe said, good job. I like what you did. Now I want you to move to Tunis, Tunisia, another North African country. Now the situation in Tunis was very different than it was in Morocco. At that time in 1960, the French left already. And with them, all the rich, well-to-do people. And the only people that were left behind were poorer people who didn't have the means to support themselves, educationally, emotionally, socially. So my grandfather's mission was to move again and help them out. And so he did. He packed a car with his 4 children, drove through Algeria, and arrived in Tunis in February 1960, and he opened a school for boys, a school for girls, high school for boys, high school for girls, a school in Jerba, which is a little island in the south of the country. But life in Tunis was very difficult for Jewish people. Every time there was a crisis in the Middle East, the Jewish people suffered. In 1967, one of his teachers, the teacher that taught in one of his schools, was murdered in the streets by a mob. So he wrote a letter to the Rebbe, and he said, Rebbe, life in Tunis is very dangerous. People are being murdered in the streets. And the Rebbe wrote back to him and he said, people are being murdered in the streets? That's awful. You can't leave. They need you more than ever. In the 70s, during the war of Yom Kippur, the government shut down every single synagogue in the country. And my grandfather wrote to the Rebbe, says, They shut down every synagogue in the country. Can we leave? Should we leave? And the Rebbe said, they shut down every synagogue in the country. They need you more than ever. You have to stay. In the 80s, again, there was a lot of tension when the PLO moved their headquarters to Tunis. The Rebbe sent people to encourage my grandparents, but my grandfather said, can I leave? And the Rebbe said, they need you more than ever. You need to show them the love they deserve. Finally, it was in the 90s, my grandfather wrote to the Rebbe the following. He said, there's only 1,000 Jews left in the whole country. Just tell me, when can we leave? When is it that our mission is done? And the Rebbe said, there's 1,000 Jews left. When you are the last one, you can leave. So he didn't. Through the 90s, I would fly in every year in the month preceding the holiday of Passover. All over America and all over the world, you could walk into a store and buy the unleavened bread, the matzah, for the holiday, but not in Tunis. In Tunis, the Jewish community got together at my grandfather's house, and they baked matzah together for 3 days. And I was there with them every year. The matzahs didn't taste so good, but they tasted like love. They tasted like community. During those times I spent with my grandfather, I understood why he's doing what he's doing. I understood he was inspired by the Rabbi. I understood he trusted the Rabbi, and I understood that he was there to show the people they loved, they deserved. My father, as a teenager, moved to the United States of America for a better life, better education, and to spend time with the Rebbe. But after he got married, he got the letter. And the letter said, you're moving to Nice, France, to open a Jewish school. The Jewish community of Nice was decimated during the Holocaust. And all the institutions were destroyed. And it was slowly getting rebuilt with newcomers from North Africa. When my family moved there, I was in my mother's womb, 1976. There was no milk. We had to go to the farm to milk a cow, to have breakfast. We didn't have access to kosher meat or kosher poultry. So we just ate fish. Not on Fridays. Just kidding. On Fridays, we ate gefilte fish. I remember one night I was awoken by my mother, and she said, I was 8 years old. My mother said, wake up, wake up. I said, what's going on? She said, you're going to New York with your father to see the Rebbe. And we took a couple flights with TWA. And we arrived in Brooklyn in October 1984. That time of the year when, in Jewish tradition, we take the Torah scrolls out of the ark and we dance with them. And I was in that synagogue, the Rebbe synagogue. It was packed, thousands of people. The walls were sweating. There were fans taped to the beams. And the Rebbe was holding the Torah and he was looking at us. And with his hand, he was making signs to sing louder and dance higher. And as a little kid, I was squeezed among the adults and I was dancing. But what I saw that night, I knew I wanted more. I want to come back. I want to be with the Rebbe. And since 1987, when I was 11 years old, I got to spend every year 4 weeks with the Rebbe. For the holidays, the high holidays. And in June 1994, 20 years ago, the Rebbe passed away. I was 18 years old. I was studying in Manchester, England, and we took a flight, myself and my group of 3-4 friends. We flew into New York that morning. We attended the funeral. And it was a sad week. we spent a few weeks together and we were asking ourselves a question. How are we going to get the letter? And we decided that we would be sending the letter to each other right now. We made a pact that when we get married, we will go to a faraway place and show people the love they deserve. We made a pact that we would choose to marry a woman who would agree to do the same. And in 1999, when I was here in Detroit dating my wife on our first date at a Starbucks in Birmingham, we were talking, and she said, let me ask you a question. If we get married, would you agree to move away to a faraway place to show people the love they deserve? Yep, that was it. A whole different way to say love at first sight. My wife was working at the time for an organization here in Detroit, in West Bloomfield, called Friendship Circle. We help children with special needs. There you go, thank you. The purple magnet. Children with special needs, individuals who suffer from drugs and alcohol, and she was showing the love to those people, maybe not in a faraway place physically, but outside the circle. They needed to be included, and she really wanted to continue that. So I married her, I moved to Michigan from south of France, and about a year ago, I got a letter in the form of an itch to go somewhere far, to do something new. My wife and I bought a home in Midtown Detroit. We opened the Chabad of Greater Downtown Detroit, and we made her a mission to serve the Jewish community that works and lives in this area, and to be here for the community at large. And comparing to where my father, my grandfather, and where the Rabbi went throughout their lifetimes, I don't know if I measure up yet, but this is where I know where I am today. I'm here, and I'm here to stay. And I know that when I stay here, I will be a better person for it. I will be able to live in a better community for it. My family will be a better family for it. As I leave tonight, I challenge myself and I challenge you. You and I are here in the room together. Two people. You and I. How can we make sure that from our encounter, a third person will benefit from it? Think about it. Thank you.
Rabbi Yisrael Pinson.